back to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. With me, my good friend and special guest, Dr. Friday with Dr. Friday's Tax and Financial Firm. I'm going to share with you, I'll tell you, Dr. Friday and I have been working together for over 15 years. I know she didn't look like that's possible, but it's true. And in doing that time, this is one of the things that I have developed a lot of relationship both with attorneys, when it comes to taxes, working with other professionals, basically IRAs. There's a group that I'm a member of, a national group that we get together a couple of times a year just to talk about retirement plans, okay, and how to minimize taxes.
You guys must be really fun.
We do go out and at night and really
I can see
go to bed early.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're tired. But it's, one of the things that there's so much to keep up with. The rules keep changing.
Constantly.
Recent laws now, again, with regard to Social Security and the impact that's going to have. This is going to, come into play. Medicare, the taxation of Medicare benefit, or the amount of premium you're going to have to pay on Medicare benefits, stuff like that. So there's things always going on that we have to keep up with. And you develop relationships over the time of people that you know, that you can trust, that are doing the job right. Okay, and this is one of the things with Dr. Friday. When we sit down with a client, the goal here is that we want to look before we leap. Okay, we want to go ahead and say, all right, like capital gains is one of those areas. If you're in a 10 or 15% tax bracket and you sell some stocks or some real estate, if you stay in that 10 or 15% bracket, even with the gain, you pay zero tax. Okay, zero.
Right.
This is good.
Awesome.
Okay.
One of the good tax codes.
There you go. Even if you're in the higher tax brackets, okay, up to the highest of tax brackets, it's only 15% tax. But now we get into other things like Social Security taxation. What impact is that going to have? And then the one that I hate the most, the AMT. The alternative minimum tax has got to be one of the least understood of all taxes.
And it is. Even as a tax professional, to be honest with you, I often have to double check myself to make sure I'm not triggering it, or things that Hank is normally doing, not me personally, but Hank's usually causing the trouble. But making sure things he does isn't going to trigger it, because the first answer is usually, oh, it's going to be 15, it's going to be 20, it's going to be 24. Those are the three numbers you think of with capital gains, or zero. But zero may be because if I look at a tax return and somebody has Social Security, but they're not being taxed because they're at a lower bracket, he does something. Not only will that trigger that being taxed, but also will the Social Security benefits kick in. Then we've, just dollar for dollar doubled up on all the numbers up to their 85% of their Social Security. So it's really important that you know what's going to be kicked in. And of course, AMT isn't looking at just the tax return. It's removing certain things from your Schedule A. It's adding back in certain things off your 1040 to come up to that number. So even though I say $85,000 or $50,000 for a single or married, it may be that you say, wait, my income was only $76,000, but according to the AMT tax, you're actually at 90 or whatever.
This is why I do it the way we do it. When I sit down with a client, we come up with a great plan. We go through, we're going to do this, a Roth conversion maybe. Maybe we're going to sell off some stocks. Maybe there's a sale of real estate involved. We look at everything and we look at their current tax situation. Is it going to change over the next few years? If you're working currently and, say you're going to retire you're retiring at the end of this year or maybe next year, that may have an impact on what we do with regard to when we might sell something or convert or to a Roth, or that kind of thing comes into play. Then once we put a plan together that financially makes the most sense, then we still want to run the tax return. All right, so we're going to run it before we do anything to see if we're triggering an alternative minimum tax. We know if we're going to impact Social Security and what that impact's going to be. But here again, the guidelines, when you look at figuring out how much of your Social Security is going to be taxed, there are some rough rules of thumb that say it's a provisional income formula that's used, which is kind of odd because it counts half of your Social Security benefits in getting there, but it sets certain caps saying that's half of your Social Security be taxed, or maybe 85% of your Social Security benefits are taxed. But the actual formula comes into all kinds of gray areas in between.
Right.
So we're going to run this by and say, hey, Dr. Friday, run the taxes. Here's what we've got in mind. Let's see what the impact's going to be. Compare that tax rate, and are we going to still be where we want to be in doing this type of financial planning?
And I think one of the other things is no surprises for the taxpayer, right? But so if we say, hey, you know, we're going to do all this, we all understand this is what it's going to be as far as income or taxes, you've got that money set aside. You're prepared. You're not sitting there when I prepare a tax return or someone else prepares their tax return, and next thing you know, you owe $14,000, and you're sitting there going, wait, I'm on fixed income. I don't have that set aside. Now, what's that going to mean? Because I'm going to have to sell something, buy something, and change the whole plan. So Hank builds that into the numbers, saying, hey, if we're going to owe this, this is where I'm going to get that money from. And the shock, the ticker, what is it? The shock of the whole situation is gone anyway. So it makes it easier for the person to swallow it versus getting the love letters and things, or waiting. The tax person hands you tax and says, here you go. Oh, here's your voucher. Pay this.
Well, this is the thing, when you're looking at your taxes, understanding if you've got an IRA or money in a 401k or money in a thrift savings plan, when we're talking about doing things to minimize taxes, we're not looking at just this year, though. Today we're talking about you know, how we can affect you this year. And for anybody that I'm going to be talking to through the end of this year, we're going to be looking at things that we can do last minute that might improve your tax situation. But we're also going to be looking long term in terms of what's going to be best for you as far as minimizing taxes in the future. Because how many people think taxes are going to go up, right? Most of us think they're going to go up. So if they're going to go up, wouldn't it be better if we paid a little more now, potentially, say through a Roth conversion, for the benefit of not paying them later? And there is talk in Washington of doing away with the Roth. All right? Now, that means getting it done now is the time to get it done, because later, there may not be a later. Okay? So something that you want to keep in mind. And when it comes to the Roth conversions or understanding deductions in general and taxes in general, you know, deductions and credits, the kinds of things that people can, you know, like alimony,
deductions
house insurance, or house property taxes. Right.
So I mean, credits are awesome because they're dollar for dollar, right? So when you hear someone say you're going to get the child credit of $1,000, that's $1,000 in your pocket. Plain and simple, great deduction. When you hear about a deduction, mortgage interest deduction, property tax deduction, these are going to be based on your actual income and meeting the standard deduction. So first you got to figure out you're going to itemize or not. Then the second thing you're going to do is, okay, so you have $1,000 that you've put. That really, if you're in the 15% tax bracket, really only saved you $150. So you had to spend $1,000 to save $150. Not always the best mathematics as far as I'm concerned. So sometimes deductions are great versus not, but don't go spend $1,000 just so you can deduct $150 is all I'm saying. Business owners especially.
That's it. It's again, it's about how much money you keep in your pocket. So minimizing taxes is important, but again, you've got to look at the overall picture to see what's in your best interest. All right? We've got some last minute tips to share with you as soon as we come back. First, we're going to take a break. Join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.